Welcome back to Stasis, everybody. First things first, let's go over to the opposite side of the room with John and have him take a look at what is left of those bodies.
I think I found the crew.
Are they also bloodied up, like the guy on before?
You could say that. I'm not sure how many people I'm looking at. It's like something from the eugenics war painting.
Try to push through, John. A few decks below, one step at a time.
Little something weird about this section. If you mouse over the portals to the outside, you'll get a hand icon, but that hand icon is actually for the mangled bodies in the corner. Which John was so about them before, but now he's just going to pick up a chunk of flesh. Now, there are also a couple of PDAs in this area, and I'm going to warn you, the PDAs here are pretty lengthy. These two in particular are for a pair of friends that worked here. Sadie is the head of medical tech in this area, and at one point, she gets locked in during a power outage with some specimens, and she notices that some of them have unusual mutated growth on them. That causes her to question why these are still allowed to be so close to the greenhouses with all the other plants. And she also questions why some plants were showing signs of Dutch elm disease, which at the time of this game didn't exist. She submits a report and nothing comes of it. Then fast forward to when shit starts to go down on the ship. She mentions how Erica's going nuts because she's trying to look for her sister Danica. Sadie saw a creature wearing Danica's skin, namely her face, earlier, and Erica just refuses to believe that. She threatens to kill anybody who doesn't follow with her, and eventually she dies. She gets killed by one of the creatures. Specifically, her spine got ripped out. Great. So, Sadie realizes that she is infected with something, and the fungus that they breeded to kill the other fungus just spread out of control, and it's actually gotten so strong that they can't cut through it with laser scalpels or any other tools. She then resolves to go and retrieve Erica's remains later, and she dies. There's this same notice we saw earlier from Dr. Isaiah Al-Raj Kupar, saying that people have to get their data tags removed. More interesting, however, are the emails on her PDA. There's one to Dr. Malan, informing him of the mutated samples, and how she recommends just shutting everything down, decontaminating everything, not letting this contagion spread any further. And then there's one last email which is encrypted, and it's from Erica, who asks Sadie if she's out of her mind because of all the possible ramifications for taking those samples out of their containment. And she hopes that Sadie is wrong about what she thinks is going on, but Sadie's never been wrong before, so there's that. Now that's what Sadie says happens. Let's go to the other PDA, and this will give us an opportunity to see what's going on through Erica's point of view. So, Erica's sister Danica gets dumped by her pilot boyfriend, and Danica is really distraught over it. She's going to be bothered by this for quite some time throughout these entries. She and some of the other women on the ship get together and drink quote-unquote Martian champagne. Fast forward, and suddenly the Groom Lake gets a massive budget increase, so they're getting all this equipment in on the ship, but they don't have anywhere to put all of it. And as this is going on, Dr. Milan is switching the growth fluid that they use with another one that they say it's the same, but it's apparently 4 times more effective. Erica has asked to switch back to the old formula, and their request has gone to Dr. Milan twice, and nobody has responded to it, and she wonders why they're ignoring them. Fast forward a little bit, and a massive brawl erupts in the mess hall between a bunch of people, and Erica notes that they don't look quite right. They look like they're on some kind of drugs, which is weird, and she ties this to the new set of supplies that they got in, and she sends some of them off to get tested by a friend of hers, and notes that she doesn't really know who she can trust anymore. Eventually, she just snaps and says, "I have to go see my sister Danica," while Sadie is saying, no, you can't do it. you'll get yourself killed, you'll get us killed, she's already dead, etc., etc., and she's just not listening to any of it. She gets a couple of rifles and a laser scalpel, and says that Sadie and some of the others are coming with her if they want to or not. Meanwhile, there's an email on here from Professor Luke Musgrave of the University of Tampa, Florida. He examines the samples that Erica gave him and says that these aren't just contaminated. Whatever they're contaminated with was specifically engineered. This wasn't just some natural occurrence. Somebody did this specifically. And what they engineered it with was a specific form of PCP. It's a drug that was used during something called the Eugenics Wars, which I'm guessing is more than just a Star Trek reference. He wonders why the hell this would be distributed to both the staff and patients, and tells her, for the love of God, be safe. And she wasn't. Anyway, there are 2 different sections we can go to for now. We're going to avoid the section to the lower right and head to the reception area, which is the lower left. And just take a moment to soak in this ambiance and hear John's reaction to it.
It crawled through the night, and then they grafted their eyes and tore through my skin. Oh, never ever, never again. They came for our mothers and then for our king, scratching the blood and eating our sin, changing God's work.
Not to foreshadow too much, John, but this is the least of your problems going forward. So, there's a force field covering this door and another door we'll see later. But we can't get through it because the system is still recognizing John's personal data tag. So it's not giving him the ability to go through those doors, and it's also not going to allow him to use the medical terminal. So we are just going to continue proceeding forward, and absolutely nothing bad is going to happen.
Serotonergic receptors are present in your principal vascular system.
See? Nothing bad happened. Anyway, we're going to peek through this force field for now to just give you a little idea of what lies ahead. It's a stasis pod area, although only one of them appears to still be intact. That'll come into play later, but for now, let's check out these suits, and...
This should be useful.
I love how this guy can just take an oxygen cylinder and shove it into his future pocket. We are going to need that for a puzzle in the near future, because John is about to have a rather unfortunate revelation.
I'm back. It's been cut open.
Of course! They must have manually removed the PDTs. That's why the security systems were reset in medical.
Oh, the bodies. The bodies in the crew quarters. Skinned. The creatures were using the PDTs to move through secure areas.
Must have realized what was going on.
So for me to get to the lower decks,
You have to remove your tag.
remove?
Perhaps electric shock. No, that wouldn't work. John? This is the only surefire way.
What are you saying?
The surgery pod should already be programmed to remove it.
It didn't work out so well for this poor woman.
It's the only way, unless you space jump between decks.
This is surgery.
John, prep the pod.
Yes, John is going to have to do spinal surgery on himself, because there aren't any doctors around to do it for him. For now, though, the fruits of this surgery are actually still on the table because there is the woman's personal data tag. So we're just going to take that with us. Now, in order to get the surgery pod working, we have to get these 4 receptacles in front of us fully functional, filled, prepped, and ready to go. There's the organic matter receptacle, there's anesthetic storage, oxygen, and cryopreservation. And there's an empty tank for cryopreservation fluid right here, so we'll just take that. And you've probably guessed it already, but we are going to eventually use that oxygen tank that we have on the oxygen storage unit. But for now, we can just turn on the anesthetic storage and that'll be ready to go. So let's do that.
Not properly prepared for the selected program.
1 down, 3 to go. Now, this is what happens if you just try sticking the oxygen cylinder onto the machine.
This is a final request for Wiggly
I don't think this will fit.
It's not going to stay there on its own, so we need some means to secure it on there. So we'll pick up the oxygen cylinder again, and put that loose cable we picked up to good use.
This should be useful.
Not quite sure how exactly wrapping cables just around the cylinder works, but it does.
Surgical bodies not properly prepared for the selective program.
We're halfway there, we're making good progress. But now we have one more PDA, and it's from Isaiah Al-Rajkupar. And this guy is extremely long-winded, so let's blow through this. He talks at some length about how the medical wing has been split into 3 different groups: cybernetics, tissue regeneration, and hydroponics, and he doesn't see why they even have that 3rd section, but he's not going to ask questions because Kane gave him this incredible medical career when he was out in the battlefields with war-torn villages, elbow deep in all kinds of dead bodies and stuff. He mentions how people have to keep sharing supplies, and he doesn't expect Kane Corp to kindly review the budget for the Groom Lake, but instead, the Groom Lake gets a 300% budget increase. He makes it apparent that he's working on Project Seed, and says that he's not going to question the moral ambiguities about how they get their test subjects. But then he's a bit horrified to realize that several children as young as 9 years old are part of the testing program. He confronts Milan about this, and Milan talks him down and uses a series of logistical leaps to convince him that this moral gray area is worth pursuing for the greater good. When the first infected crew people start coming to his lab for help, he starts to realize that he's got a little bloodlust in him. That he's really enjoys being able to play God with these people, being able to cut them up, and basically have no consequence for it. Fast forward a little bit, and he starts to realize that these creatures on the ship are using people's personal data tags to gain access to secure areas, and curses himself and the people like him on the Groom Lake for playing God and letting their hubris run out of control. Then there's just the message that he sent to everyone about getting their data tags removed, and another message from a different doctor about the requirements for Project Seed being adjusted a little bit to women who were recently pregnant, as in within the past month or so, and who are in a certain age group, certain blood type, etc., etc. Oh, actually, one last thing before we leave this PDA. Take a look at the note to the lower left of it. Take note of the formula, the little X1 by it, these dots underneath it. This is going to be part of a puzzle later. I know usually these notes on the side don't mean much, but they do here. Now, there is another thing we can take care of, which is that organic receptacle. Now you might just be thinking, shove that gore that we have into the receptacle and we're good to go. But it doesn't quite work that way.
The organic matter receptacle requires refined biological tissue.
Now, what exactly does it mean by refined biological tissue? Well, what it means is we're going to take this and put it on the table where we found the personal data tag. This is one of those puzzles that's not as immediately apparent. And we have to basically tenderize this. So we're going to use our empty pistol, and we are going to mash this viscous matter into a fine paste. Okay, I admit, you didn't think this is what the empty pistol was going to be used for, did you? Because I sure didn't. But now that we've traumatized John a little bit more and we have this fine paste of flesh, blood, and bone, let's dump it in the receptacle.
Medtech surgical pod is not properly prepared for the selective program.
And we just have one more tank to fill, but that's going to have to wait until the next video. So next time on Stasis, where are we going to get cryopreservation fluid?